everyone's life is completely unique to them. And so you have to get past your ego, and you have to find your shared experience with people. The things that we're most afraid to show people are the things that we have most in common. And since I've come to understand that, I've been able to be able to write towards this common ground and connect myself to people and create an environment that's full of shared understanding. And I really think that that's the power of music. The biggest challenge in songwriting is to get over yourself and realize that the most beautiful thing about writing a song is that it can be shared.
Welcome to another episode of Write of Your Life, where life happens and life storytelling transforms it. Our show is brought to you by lifestorytelling.com. And guess what? You don't have to be a writer to write your life stories. Lifestorytelling.com will teach you how. If you've been through hell and lived to tell about it, or your family skeletons are poking out of the closet, you'll want to check it out at lifestorytelling.com. So excited to have Fort Worth, Texas soul singer Luke Wade on the show today to kick off our Songwriter series. Luke was in the top 5 of NBC's musical competition series, The Voice, in season 7. Growing up in a quiet little Texas town of Dublin seems a fateful beginning for this soul singer. The youngest of 4 children, he's had some trials in his life. A childhood bout with spinal meningitis proved nearly fatal. A paintball accident left him blind in one eye, and some years later a severe heat stroke left him with amnesia and took him to the edge once again. Though these experiences inevitably influenced Luke, his music remains eternally hopeful and without an ounce of resignation. As you can guess, his life is reflected in his music. Welcome, Luke.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad to have you here because you are an amazing person, and I've read some of your background. Of course, we're both Texans, which I love that. You have an amazing story to tell because you've overcome a lot in your life, and that's shown through some of the lyrics in your music. Can you just give us a little bit of background on yourself and some of the hardships that you've come through?
Well, I guess I should put it maybe like this, that of whatever gifts that I've been given in this life that I'm very much appreciative of, I think one of the things that I'm best at is failing forward and not being scared to fail. And so I've done a fair amount of, I had some childhood ailments that I overcame. Mm-hmm. I had spinal meningitis as a young child, and that was really more of a hardship on my parents than myself, because they weren't sure if I was going to be a normal kid after that was walking and talking and
right,
doing normal kid stuff, and that turned out, I dodged that bullet, and then I had an eye injury at 14, and really, that's not as much about the ailment as it is just the psychology of being a kid with that has a trauma. And whenever you're not sure who you are yet and something happens, then you have a tendency to become that thing. That's your identity, because that's the most identifiable thing that's happened in your life. Mm-hmm. So instead of being someone who's good at baseball or is the class clown, you're the kid with, the kid with one eye.
Right.
And so, and really I don't think it was ever that big of a deal to anyone. It took my sports career to a screeching halt with the exception of running. And so I got into running, and I took things so seriously, and I was so competitive with myself that I ran myself into a heat stroke and had some amnesia and,
oh, wow.
And some brain damage and things like that. It all went undiagnosed because my dad's a painter and my mother's a dance teacher. So whenever your parents are artists, you don't have insurance, and we don't have insurance. You don't, it's not worth it to pay however many $1,000s to find out what's wrong with you, as long as you can still live your life. So
right.
Not
right.
sure exactly what it was, but school was harder whenever I came back. And I remember right after the injury being asked to count backwards from 100 and not being able to do it, and not knowing who my parents were.
Hmm.
And so that's a very fascinating memory to to be able to recall, not being able to recall anything. But yeah, I had on my cross country uniform, and I didn't know what it was, and a number of other things. And so those are the things that I was able to kind of, you let them define you as a young person, and then you let them push you as an older adult, and eventually they're just a part of all the things that make who you are. And hopefully that's something that you're proud of if you've really left everything out there most of the moments in your life in terms of effort and energy and belief.
Yeah, because you've grown. Now, you mentioned discovering your identity. When did you discover your identity as a musician?
That was very late. 27, probably
Really?
26.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was whenever it, it was very strange the way it all happened. Is I just kind of, it was very organic and innocent the way it all happened. I just had some things to say. It was my preferred method of self-expression, and I just, I wanted to make a good album. I wanted to make something that was excellent, and in the process, and I wanted to share it with people, both live and on recording. And so, and the and I always thought that you were either U2 or you were a garage band. I didn't know that there were varying degrees because I was in a small town. I was very isolated, and so you just saw the people on TV,
Right.
and then your heroes that were other kids that were maybe a little bit older who were jamming in the garage, and I had no kind of understanding of what the trajectory looked like from getting to one to the other, from one to the other. So, I wanted to make something and assume that if it was good enough, that the big thing would happen, and if it wasn't, then I would go on about my life.
Mm-hmm.
And little did I know that the journey to just make something that I thought was good was going to last 10 years.
Wow.
And so by the time that actually happened, that I had something out that I thought was good, and that I was starting to be decent at music, I had already gone so far down that road that it was who I was. That was one of the most difficult years of my life.
Right.
Was grasping, coming to grips with the fact that I was no longer my potential, that I was who I was and what I was, and it was the kind of the culmination of things that I had and had not done. That's whenever you realize that you're not going to be a doctor, you're not going to be you're not going to be a archaeologist. Like you've kind of chosen your path, whether you like it or not. And I never intended to be a musician.
Mm-hmm.
It was an accident, and at that point, like the thing that I wasn't successful at, and I was bartending and barely making ends meet, and just trying to make scrape enough money together to buy some time to go and do the thing that I had become, to go be the thing that I had become.
Right.
And so, that's when all that culminated. And then I've just spent the last, the last 5 years kind of just digging myself out of that hole. But I really feel like that it was also 27 whenever I became who I am and came to grips with it and learned to love it and learned to really build confidence in who I am and love who I am. And before that, I didn't, that necessarily wasn't the thing. Like those weren't necessarily at the forefront of my existence.
Right. Now that's a huge transformation and recognition, and you're also a songwriter as well. So has that come out in your songs and your lyrics that you create?
Oh, absolutely. The last, each album kind of has a theme. The first record is very much about my disconnect from people, and that was, I didn't realize it, but it was very much self-imposed. It was, I kind of, because of my lack of confidence, I didn't think that I deserved the kind of people in my life that I wanted and needed.
Right.
And so I surrounded myself with people that and relationships that reflected that. And so the first album was really about that desire to find those people and to feel like I deserve those people and to be the person that I wanted to be to get those people. And so, and then the second record is really about the transformation, being from being who, your potential to being who you are, and coming to grips with that growing up after your body stops doing it for you is really hard work.
True.
And, so that's really kind of what the second record was about. And then the next one that hasn't come out yet is, there's a lot more storytelling just about, things that are kind of isolated, just kind of narratives. And then there's also a lot of, I've come to understand that the things that we want and need as human beings are so much on the other side of things that we're so afraid of, and rightfully so, because we've been hurt a lot through our lives. So that's kind of what the majority of this new material is about, that walking through that fire.
Right. So a lot of this is so personal. Is it hard to put something so very personal out there for everybody to listen to and criticize or like or whatever that they want to do with it?
That's really my gift, is not worrying too much about that.
Good.
That's usually the hardest. I think it's the hardest thing for people. But for me, it's always been the easiest, and it's allowed me to really make a lot more mistakes and turn a lot more coals into diamonds, and a lot of people get the opportunity to.
So when you sit down or do you even sit down to write a song, or does it just come to you and it just like flows out of you? How does that process work?
Really, they're just kind of the ideas, both musical, lyrical. Both musical and lyrical, are just kind of floating around in the universe. And it's whenever you practice songwriting, when you start going down that path, it's like someone asks you a question that you don't know the answer to. And, people do that. They'll say, who was the actor in this movie? And you know it, but you just don't have access to the information at that moment.
Right.
And so you're however it works, like your brain's kind of just sifting through things and listening and trying to, and then eventually, maybe an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours, you're like, oh, it was this guy or this woman or whatever the answer is. And so that's kind of how songwriting works for me. It's like I ask myself a question and I'm finding the answers to that question little by little, and then turning them in and turning the answers into stories.
That's good. If you were to think back on some of the biggest obstacles you faced as a songwriter and how you've overcome those, what would you say is one of those toughest obstacles?
Really, it's understanding the value and the challenges of having a unique perspective. Everyone's life is completely unique to them. Their emotional and personal, psychological and musical experiences are all very unique. And so in that, it's very easy to write things accidentally that only you relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to get past your ego, and you have to find your shared experience with people. And what you ultimately share with everyone is often the things that are most personal. The things that we're most afraid to show people are the things that we have most in common with everyone. And that's just kind of the very nature, and that's what I've come to understand. And since I've come to understand that, I've been able to be able to write towards this common ground and connect myself to people and people to other people, and create an environment that's full of shared understanding. And I really think that that's the power of music. And so the challenge of, so I guess in short, it's the biggest challenge in songwriting is to get over yourself and realize that the most beautiful thing about writing a song is that it can be shared.
Right.
And should be shared.
And should be. And one of the things that we tell people who want to write about their lives, whether it's a short story or a memoir or a song, is that, you are helping by writing this and by sharing your story, you're helping somebody who may be just about to go through what you're going through.
Yeah.
Right? They may be a minute behind or 2 years behind you, but your sharing your story will help somebody else. And so that's why it's important to get it out there.
Absolutely. And I've even written stories about things in my life that I saw coming, that I thought were going to happen,
mm-hmm.
and opened up a dialogue with myself and with the people in my life where we were able to look at what was probably going to happen in an honest way and really figure out what the solutions are. I've been gone for the majority of the year on tour, and I've got a beautiful, wonderful woman at home, and it's a challenge on that much, because no matter how special of a person you are and how special your relationship is, it's hard to not think that someone who may not be as good at loving her might be a better choice just because he can be there. And so I wrote a song about that and opened up that dialogue and created an environment for us to find an understanding and work to avoid outcomes that were that were discussed in a story. And I think that's really the power of stories, is to they're time machines. You can change outcome, and you can bring the past to the future and help teach you, create stories that survive you and help future generations avoid repeating your mistakes. So nothing more powerful than stories.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so one last question. If there is somebody who wants to be a songwriter or wants to write about their lives, what piece of advice would you give them as they're on that journey?
They want to be a songwriter. Share your experiences. And what I mean by that is, at every opportunity. So write songs with people. Use people as your mirror to help create, a more diverse perspective. Share your songs with people and see how they affect, the people in the audience. Study other people's songs. It's not, once, just get over yourself and share what you have, and let people share what they have with you, because that's just like the power of the story. The power of your perspective is your story that that maybe you haven't shared with other people yet, and someone else's perspective is their story that you can see if you ask them for it, and make your have a better understanding of what your story means. And so that's what writing is all about, is finding those understandings.
Fabulous. Well, Luke, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us and sharing your life in story and in song, and good luck in the future.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Great information from Luke Wade. At the end of each episode, I peek into the Life Story Toolkit and share information on one particular tool that you might consider using if you're writing or would like to start writing about your life. The Life Story Toolkit is sponsored by lifestorytelling.com, where you can find your life theme, discover where to start writing, and craft your life into a compelling story. This episode's Life Story Toolkit features a website called America's Footprints. This site gives you an easy way to privately tell your story in the form of a digital memoir. When you log on, you can create what they call a footprint, and this footprint is a unique profile created on your own and in private, containing the poignant memories that make up your life story. You're essentially building a digital profile that will forever store the memories and milestones in your lifetime for the purposes of preserving your footprint in history. You can think of a footprint like a memoir or an autobiography, but on a much smaller scale. For example, as a member, you can share stories of your childhood and important lessons that you have learned along the way. You can talk about where you've been and what dreams you wish to pursue in the future. You can add historic photos from your past that have meaning or significance in some way. And you can leave behind personal messages for your closest family, your friends, and even your future descendants. It's at americasfootprints.com. Well, that's all we have for today. In the last episode, James Kennedy discussed the 92nd Newberry Film Festival, where kids recreate a book plot in 90 seconds of film. So if you have a book-loving kid in your life, you might want to go back and have a listen. Next week, we'll interview our next songwriter, 16-year-old Mia Zanotti. If you like this podcast and find it valuable, would you consider sponsoring the show? You can support it by sharing each episode on your social networks, and you can head over to our special page at patreon.com/rightofyourlife and become a patron. That's patreon.com/rightofyourlife. Not only will you feel good knowing you're helping the show, but there are special perks for supporters too. If just 15 people provided $5 per episode, it would help us reach many more people who could benefit from writing about their lives. We love our listeners and would enjoy interacting with you on social media. We're on Pinterest, Facebook, and just about anywhere you can hold a great virtual conversation. My handle is Right of Your Life. This show is put together by consulting producer Nick Jaworski at podcastmonster.com and myself, Stacy Curtis. We hope that today you have the right of your life.